Hi, and welcome to Power the Network. I'm your host, Tim Locker, Vice President of Broadband here at CBM. I'm very excited about our guest today. We've got Mr. Shawn Tafoya, a regional sales manager for Acuity Lighting. We're going to talk about a lot of different things today, and I'm really excited about the chance to get to know him a little bit better. So follow along with us as we get going. Shawn, thanks for joining us today. I appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to come and be here with us.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate being here.
Thank you. I would say lighting is probably not something that people think about on a daily basis. You know, common people, not something top of mind.
Right.
What would you say, like, what would be the result if, you know, Acuity didn't exist? Or in other words, you know, why is it so important?
Well, I mean, we'd all be in the dark at night then, right? So Acuity as a company provides lighting, not just in utilities, but across all kinds of different kind of buildings and outdoor facilities, you name it. So from your residential recessed cans and switches all the way up to, you know, high mass luminaires on freeway intersections and stuff like that. So,
sure.
Without Acuity or lighting companies in general, we'd all be in the dark at night for sure. So it is strange though. You're right. I mean, I'll walk into places, buildings, go into new cities, and I'm always looking up to see what kind of lights are in the space.
Yeah,
and
my kids always take for granted.
Yeah, and my kids will be there. What are you looking at? You know, and I'm like, well, just looking at the lights, see what they have.
Yeah, just recently I had to pick a guy up. It was early in the morning, and I pull into his driveway, and he's got the garage doors, but with the windows. Mm-hmm. And I could see he had these lights. They're called a corncob LED light.
Right.
And I was just blown away. I'm like, those are the brightest garage lights I've ever seen. And he got in the truck. I'm like, where did you get those? I have to have them, you know? So turns out Amazon. You know,
Amazon,
you know, but so I've got them in my garage now. Mm-hmm. They're wonderful, but it's certainly something you take for granted for sure. Right. So, but your focus is on utility, right? What's the main thing you're doing there? Street lights, you know, decorative poles, etc.
Yeah, our bread and butter is going to be your everyday street lights. The American Electric brand is the thing we're most talking with utilities about, the street lights. But we also do a lot of floodlights. And then another big portion of our business is the Hall of Fame, the decorative, traditional style, post-top luminaires, and also Cyclone. So Cyclone is one of our newer brands in the Acuity portfolio as more of a modern flair for post-tops and area lights. And then we do a lot of controls, right? That's a big piece of it nowadays. With the Internet of Things, connecting those lights together, and utilities be able to access those lights from a central location. All of those things we're pushing every day.
Yeah, and I want to get into those controls a little bit deeper, but you know, it seems like over the last several years, there's been a big push. We're trying to, transition everything to LED.
Right.
Explain to me what that looks like. Are we replacing fixtures? Are there, is it just bulbs or are there kits? How does that work?
Yeah.
And on top of that, then what's the benefit to the end user?
Okay. Let's take that last bit first. The initial benefit, first of all, is about a 50% energy saving over the old HID, whether it's high pressure sodium, metal halide. So it's a 50% energy savings right off the top. On top of that, now you have a labor or maintenance savings. So, you know, the typical street light, for instance, we rate it for 100,000 hours of service, which is, you know, over 20 years of service in a normal dusk to dawn application.
Okay.
The old HID systems, they were about 2 to 3 years before they had to be maintained.
Okay.
according to the Illuminating Engineering Society. Now, whether utilities did that or not is another story.
Sure.
But, maximum about 5 years of service before they had to be maintained. So that's the initial thing, the energy savings and the maintenance savings for the utilities. I mean, you have to think about a truck roll, for instance, right? A utility will tell you a truck roll is at least $250 to roll a truck to a single luminaire. If you don't have to do that for 20 years, that's huge savings in maintenance and operations.
So what do you think percentage-wise across the country, where are we at with that transition?
I think we're less than 50% still.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
'Cause we've been at it for, 10 years anyway?
Close to it, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we've still got a long way to go. We have...
So why, if it's a 50% savings, why would anybody resist it?
There's lots of reasons. It's not necessarily resistance. The main reason that we see, particularly the big IOUs, slow to adopt is they have smaller municipalities inside their territories that have not, they just don't have a rate case for LED. And that municipality hasn't adopted LED yet. And so the utility has to continue to service that system, but with parts and pieces at this point.
Okay.
So last year, Acuity got completely out of the HID business altogether. So we stopped manufacturing.
So it'll come as a necessity.
Yeah. Those municipalities at some point, because the IOUs are going to go to them and say, hey, look, we can't get this light bulb anymore. We can't get this luminaire anymore.
Yeah.
We have to go to LED, right? So I think there's one company out there still making them, the HID roadway fixtures. But even there was a lamp supplier, I think last year, went out of business. And so it's hard for guys to even get the luminaire or the lamps even. So
what does the process look like then? If we're changing out a street light, are we changing the whole light? What are we doing? So
that's our policy. That's what we would suggest you do.
Okay.
There's a myriad of reasons for that. We recommend changing out the luminaire because then you've got a whole UL listed, warranted luminaire installed. When you're talking about retrofit kits or lamp kits or something like that, what you're doing is you're altering or modifying the original design of that fixture, which automatically voids UL listing.
Okay.
So
but they have been fairly popular.
They have been popular, but we also have seen similar cases that there's been major issues.
Okay.
Not to get any specifics,
sure.
But and then there's mechanical issues as well. So one of the big things that we've dealt with in the past with municipalities changing out decorative streetlights on pendant style fixtures is the mechanical connection. So when those fixtures are originally installed, they're screwed onto that pipe thread.
Yep.
Right, and they're not meant to come off. Right, they're supposed to stay there forever. And so when you go to change those fixtures out, what we've seen is they go to unscrew those fixtures from that pipe thread and they end up stripping the threads off that nipple.
Yeah.
And they'll leave, maybe a thread or thread and a half on there. And then they'll go to screw on their brand new LED fixture and it leaks. You get the first rainstorm and now you've got a really expensive fishbowl, as it were.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And so we've had a lot of conversations with municipalities and utilities around not only having to change the luminaire, but the arm that goes with it.
Gotcha.
Right? So
yeah,
there's mechanical issues. There's obviously electrical issues. If you're gutting a fixture, you're, gutting the fixture, taking that old core and coil ballast out, going direct wire to some corn cob style light bulb, right? And modifying that fixture altogether is just, not only you're affecting the electrical performance of the luminaire, but you're affecting the photometry of that luminaire, right? You don't know exactly how that corn cob is supposed to fit inside there and light up the street. And that's the other issue for the municipalities and utilities. They have a fiduciary responsibility to provide adequate lighting on the roadway. And so we spend a lot of time going over lighting designs with our customers. That's a big part of what we do every day, is saying, okay, here's the street. Here's what we recommend that you do. But just because we recommend it doesn't necessarily make it so.
Yeah.
So we go to the computer, we go to the software, we provide adequate lighting on the roadway and give you documents to say, this is what it's going to look like. And there's data to back it up.
Yeah.
And now you can make an educated decision.
So let's recap that real quick. So if you're going to go to a municipality and try to convince them to switch to LED lighting, what are the main points you're going to focus on?
Right.
There?
So it's initial, at least a 50% energy savings. The maintenance costs over the life of the luminaire. You know, it's, again, you're not going to touch that fixture for 20 years. And at the end of the day, the pricing has gotten to a point where it just makes sense now.
Yeah.
You know, with most consumer electronics like TVs, right? The price comes down over time.
Yep.
Same things happen with LED streetlights.
Okay. So we've got to accept some of the new technologies that are, you know, coming out. I think, you know, the world we live in today, things are changing rapidly,
right.
Obviously. What's some of the new technology that you guys have? I know I've heard a little bit about, you know, sensors and cameras and all these different things now that can be incorporated in, you know, into a lighting system. Right. Tell me a little bit about what's new with Acuity.
Probably the newest technology that we're putting out this year, particularly, has to do with integrating controls onto the luminaire. So they're sort of part and parcel.
Okay.
So the sensor or the photo control is actually built onto the fixture. And that the ability to do that stems from new driver technology. We have a new driver system out now. It's Dolly D4I certified driver technology. D4I means Dolly for the Internet of Things.
Okay.
And those new drivers are smart, and they allow us to be able to power those onboard controls with DC power. So the new drivers have an auxiliary bus on them that allows us to wire those onboard controls like photo control, occupancy sensors, and things like that.
What is there a brand name to it or a marketing name to it?
Yeah, it's the Acuity's Optronics drivers.
Okay.
So what we did it's going on 2 years ago, Acuity purchased the driver business from Osram. And over this last year and a half, close to 2 years now, we've integrated the Acuity Eldo LED technology with Osram's technology. And now we're building the Dolly D4I drivers for our Auto Connect luminaire. That's our new luminaire.
Auto Connect?
Auto Connect, yeah.
Okay. So for a guy like me that's not as sharp on lighting, you know, some of these terms are, you know, way over my head. But what does that do? What does that do for a municipality? What does that do for just the general public? Explain the benefits of this Auto Connect.
Okay. So the first step on the Auto Connect, it's sort of a layered solution. So the first step that we're trying to do is give our customers some control over the fixture and data analytics and troubleshooting without standing up a full citywide network. So what Auto Connect does is you're able to connect a phone or a tablet to the luminaire, download the telemetry data from the luminaire, including GPS location. You can input pole location, but all the telemetry data loads automatically. So the fixture attributes like wattage, lumen output, voltage, color, temperature, all those things load into the software, automatically uploads into the cloud. And then you can control the fixture from your phone or tablet. You can turn it off and on. You can set schedules. And then you can access that data from the cloud back at the office.
Okay, so you don't have to send a tech out to adjust anything. You just simply download, look at what you want, and,
exactly.
and tell it what to do.
Yeah, and the thing too that when we're talking about utilities, if they want to make a change to that fixture, they don't have to send a lineman to do it.
Yeah,
they can send a meter reader, they can send a salary person, they can send an intern. Go to that fixture, connect your phone to it, make your changes. And in addition to that, from the software on the cloud, you can select a group of fixtures that you want to push a change to, send that meter reader out. He connects to those fixtures individually and pushes those changes. So there's security levels in there to only give people certain access,
sure,
and all that kind of stuff. So what it is a step towards a full network system without having the cost of a full network system.
Are they just Bluetoothing then to whoever's in the field with the tablet or whatever they're connecting to?
Right.
Okay, so there's like not fiber connected to them at this point.
No, it's all Bluetooth, yeah.
Do you see that coming at some point where the lighting would be tied into, a city's fiber network? So
that already exists, right? So we've had mesh networks at Acuity since the late 2000s. We had a system called Roam, and it's a mesh network, and so those mesh network systems have existed for a long time. And those are full-blown networks, right? So you've got to stand up a whole network. You've got gateways, which act like a router. The fixtures talk to each other, talk back to the gateway, and that information transmits back to a central location. And then on a network system, now you have complete access to that fixture remotely.
Okay.
So you can sit in front of the computer and say, pick these different fixtures and do changes, do diagnostics, figure out what's wrong with that fixture before you send somebody out. With the system that we're putting forward with AutoConnect, and the Bluetooth software and all that's called Local Connect. Okay. It's not remote access. You have to be at the fixture in order to connect to it.
So that's where you're saying it's a stepping stone to that full-blown network. I'm assuming probably a tremendous cost savings too.
Right.
Okay.
So Local Connect, to do a Local Connect system on your fixture is a $25 to $35 adder. Whereas if you're standing up a whole network, you've got gateways that are a couple grand a piece.
Yeah.
The nodes that go on the fixture are over $100 a piece. So, and then you've got to deploy this throughout the city. In order for that mesh to work, you have to have a pretty dense system of lighting already, right? So in cities, it works really well. But when you start to look at co-ops and smaller utilities that have rural customers, now you're talking about fixtures that are miles away from each other, right? So the mesh networks struggle. The new thing that's sort of bridging the gap for those rural customers is cellular. So instead of a mesh network, now you're basically putting a node on every fixture that's a cell phone, basically.
Yeah.
Right? So that's something that we're coming out later this spring with as well. So we'll have a cellular solution coming very soon.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
You've been in lighting for a long time now.
Right.
Started out with a distributor.
That's right. Yeah.
Did you spend any time working as a rep?
Yeah, I did. I worked as an independent rep in New Mexico for a couple of years. I worked for an agency in Albuquerque for a couple of years as well.
Okay.
Before I started with Acuity.
Okay, so now you're with the manufacturers. You've kind of seen all facets of the job. What really brought you into lighting? What made you fall in love with it?
So it was probably around 2008 or maybe 2009. When I was working at a distributor, I was getting a lot of traction with contractors by going into all kinds of different facilities and doing what we call lighting audits, where you just go in and basically identify and count the fixtures in the space and then make recommendations for energy saving and modernizing the technology that's in the system. and was winning a lot of business. And it was stuff that was, not bid board stuff, right? It wasn't stuff that was out there that everybody's trying to price out and win business. It was stuff that we were actually going out and generating ourselves.
Yeah.
And I really, really enjoyed that and started to learn more and more. And LED at the time was in its infancy. I mean, there was really just LED light bulbs like for, table lamps and stuff like that. Yeah. It was really expensive. And you had to be really selective about where you put it. And I just got to a point where, I was spending pretty much my whole day just doing that. And so finally went to the boss's boss and said, can I just do this like all the time? And they're like, yeah, why not? Why don't we do that? Let's create a position and you just go do that. And so that's how I got started.
And it just snowballed from there.
Just snowballed, yeah.
That's awesome. So what is your, so you're regional sales manager?
Right.
What's your territory?
So I have Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, and Southern Illinois, below Chicago.
Okay. Okay. Gotcha. So, do you have any other direct people reporting to you, or you just work with your
just with
rep
the agents,
with the reps?
Okay. Yeah, I have 4 agents, CBM, obviously, and then the USA companies in Oklahoma and Texas, USA Oklahoma, USA North Texas, USA South Texas.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome. What makes CBM different than other rep firms? Really, it's got to be our ESOP. We're proud to be employee owned. That employee ownership allows us to be different. We're able to be more flexible. We're able to take care of customer issues. We can take resources from one side of the company to another. We're able to handle our manufacturers' relationships differently. It's just a really good culture, and it allows us to be very flexible with what we do. If you're looking for a high-quality sales force to represent your product, or if we can help you out with an issue on a project or whatever, please reach out to us here at CBM. It's at cbmrep.com. Thanks. So you were telling me a story of an experience you had at Disney.
Right.
If you don't mind, could you share that story with us and then kind of explain how that level of service, if you will, ties into, how you incorporate that into your world?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm happy to share the story. And I think if anybody's ever gone to any kind of, done any business schooling, whether it's at university level or beyond, Disney's always a major case study company.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Just the way that they hire, the way that they train and all that. So, we were at Disneyland. My daughter, who's now going to be 22 this year, she was, I think, 7, maybe 8 years old. So, she thinks she's a little Disney princess, right? So, we're on spring break, and spring break is usually around her birthday. And so we go to Disneyland. She gets to do her birthday at Disneyland. And before we went, we're, trying to figure out what to do for birthday cake, right? Sure. And so on the Disney website, it said you can order a birthday cake at any restaurant. It wasn't real specific about what any restaurant means, but it just said any restaurant. Sure. And so we went to our typical pizza place for lunch. We walked in, and it's sort of a place where you just grab a slice and a salad or whatever, and So we walked in, and I'm like, well, where did we order birthday cake? There's no place to order birthday cake here. So we asked one of the cast members, and the first cast member we asked, she goes, yeah, we don't do that at this restaurant. We're like, okay, well, no big deal. We'll pick up a cake on the way home or something like that. And so we started to select our food, and a different cast member came over and said, are you guys the ones looking for the birthday cake? And I said, yeah, we are. She goes, well, I can tell you, the nearest restaurant to here that has birthday cake is back on Main Street. And I said, okay. So I tell her, put everything back. Let's go. And we run over to that restaurant. It hadn't quite opened yet. But they had the menu posted outside. And we started to look at the menu, and it was like, French food. And the kids were like, they want nuggets and pizza and stuff like that. So I was like, this isn't really going to work. So I said, all right, we'll figure the cake thing out later. We go back to the pizza place, and we walked in, and that same cast member is now standing at the door, and she goes, what happened? And I go, well, the kids aren't going to eat there, right? She goes, oh, okay. She goes, I'll tell you what, I'll get you a birthday cake. And we knew how much it cost from the website, so my wife whips out a $20 bill, hands it to her, and says, here, I know it's $20. Here, take this, right? And she runs off. We get our pizza. We go sit down and start to have lunch. She comes back with the birthday cake and gives us our $20 back.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And so, like I was telling you last night, from that point on, I was like, Disney can have all my money.
Yeah.
Right? So, and it's pretty much been that way since then. We've gone back year over year over year. And I think, to answer your question, the takeaway that I had from that was to always, number one, listen to your customer and the problem that they have.
Yeah.
Right? Don't try to find a solution initially. Understanding the problem, listening, first of all, to what the problem is critical. And then taking time to formulate a solution for that, tailored to that customer.
Yeah.
You follow me?
Yeah.
And I think the other thing too is it's a general attitude that I think every salesperson should have, just to kind of take a step back without saying no, without saying yes initially, and just go, okay, how can we make this work?
Yeah.
You have a problem. How can we solve it? And how can we solve it in a way that the company's happy, right? Because if I'm being honest, my first responsibility is protect the profitability of my company.
Sure.
And so I have to be able to come up with solutions that take care of my customer's problem and protect my company at the same time. I think that a lot of times we kind of lose sight of the fact that we're in a relationship business.
Yeah.
And that we seem short-sighted in that, in the way that I think about my relationships with my customers, that I'm going to be here for a really long time.
Yeah.
And you and I are going to interact for a really long time.
And I think that gives them comfort knowing, these industries are so small.
Yeah.
And people jump around, and I get that. But there's definitely value in longevity.
Right.
And the customers understand that you're going to be there. I think that's big.
I mean, I can't come up with a solution that is short-sighted, right? But again, I want my customers to understand that I'm going to be here. And so I can't give you a quick answer. I need to give you the long answer, because the answer I give you today has to be the same answer I give you 5 years from now, right?
So let me ask you this. If I totally follow what you're saying in terms of understanding the problems, listening, getting the right solution. I get that. What do you do when they don't have a problem? A lot of times we go into a sales call with maybe there's somebody new, you haven't met them, maybe it's not, but we already assume in our heads there's something we're there to talk to them about, right? But what if there's no problem? What do you do then?
And it's kind of, there's a lot of customers that don't like that, right? That, in the utility industry, we do business over the long term, right?
Yeah.
It'll be a 1 year contract, or, we're looking at annuity business year over year.
Yeah.
And things can be going great, right? No defects, no issues, no quality problems and stuff like that. And so you're making a sales call and you're like, well, why are you here? Everything is going great.
Yeah.
My answer to that is something that I've only recently got my brain wrapped around, is that we get so hyper-focused on one thing when we're in a sales call that we have to kind of slow down and go, we need to talk about everything. Every time we go to a customer, we need to talk about everything we have to offer.
Yeah.
And if you do that, there's always something new.
Yeah, we termed that, actually, Dan Levac with Preform termed this phrase, but STP, sell the package.
I like that.
Yeah, because obviously there's a lot of business. We're always after new customers, but we're probably not selling everything we could to every single customer we have. So there's a lot of low hanging fruit out there, but you've got to do that discovery.
Yeah.
And we were on a Teams call recently with a training company that we've looked at for doing sales training, and one of the big things there that they talked about was that discovery, how to form the right questions, etc. And that really stuck with me because I think a lot of times we just run right in and we're trying to, make too much progress when that discovery really ties back to that listening. Mm-hmm. What are we really going to do for this customer that's going to benefit them down the road? So
no, I agree. So the easiest thing to do is, for us is to throw a fixture on the table and open it up and, go through electrical, mechanical, and opticals,
data
specs. Yeah. It's easy to do that. You can talk for an hour doing that stuff. When it came recently, like I said, it's in the forefront of my mind on sales calls now. They say, okay, if we're going in to talk about this thing, we have to talk about Auto Connect. We have to talk about the controls. We have to talk about Hall of Fame. We need to talk about Cyclone. We need to talk floodlights. We need to talk everything that we have to offer every time we go in. And formulating questions is a big part of that. And I absolutely agree. And one of the things that I like to do, particularly if we go into to see a customer that's having an issue and we're trying to develop a solution, right? The main starter for that question is help me better understand.
Yes, that's good.
XYZ.
Yeah.
Right. And when you get your customer talking, they're going to tell you exactly what they want.
Yeah.
They will tell you what the problem is. They'll tell you what they think the solution is. And then you can tailor your solution to that. And it really does work.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah. I like that. So, life on the road.
Yeah.
You've been doing it a long time. I'm sure you travel all over. I have for years. What are some of the challenges you've had, trying to balance life, work, family, all of those things? I think most people think it's, we're a traveling sales guy. It's party every day, right?
No, it's one of those things that I've tried to explain to my wife. It's not as glamorous as it looks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Hotels, airports, stuff like that. I mean, when you don't travel for business and you travel for pleasure, you're always excited, right? When you travel for vacation and stuff. And so you put up with a lot of things you wouldn't normally put up with. And when you travel for business, it's really just not fun.
Yeah.
Right. It's not fun travel. There's some perks, when you travel, you get some special bennies from the different, whether it's airlines or hotels or whatever.
Sure. Yeah. I've always enjoyed, there's places that I've been that I would never, ever go to.
Right.
So that's one benefit. You get to see some things that you wouldn't get to see, but
I think balance for me is, I feel deeply for traveling salesmen that have younger children, like elementary school.
Yeah.
My kids are a lot older now. They're both graduating this year. One's going to be 18, the other 22. And so they're very already sort of independent, right?
Sure.
And so they're able to help more around the house and help my wife. And when I'm, not there to cook and do stuff like that. And so for me, it's been a lot easier the last probably 5 or 6 years than it was when I first started this.
Yeah.
And that piece of it, when you have young kids and you're away and traveling for work, that's an extra level of stress, I think.
Yeah.
And inevitably, you get that phone call that, the water heater broke.
Yeah.
And you're 1,500 miles away and you go, well, what do you want me to do about it? I can't really do anything from here. So
we just had the water filter break. We've got one of the whole house filters.
Yeah.
You know, I'm 200 miles from home, and I was actually driving home from Kansas City, and my daughter called. She got home from school.
Yeah.
And she's like, there's water all over the basement. I'm like, okay. So, you know, she'd went and got the neighbor. Luckily, they were able to, you know, shut it off. But literally, the casing of the water filter housing just cracked and fell off. So, you know, who knows how long this water's going, but it's always when you're gone.
Right.
It never fails.
Right.
You mentioned cooking. I'd be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about your infatuation with barbecue.
Infatuation. Yeah.
What's your favorite thing to cook? I am an absolute rookie when it comes to. I've got a wood pellet grill, and I use it mostly for grilling. Like I love, you know, I can throw a dozen burgers on the thing, and they're all the same.
Yeah.
I like that. It doesn't cook the juice out of it, and etc. I did do a brisket over, well, I shouldn't take full credit. My son prepped it.
Yeah.
And then I just managed my phone and told it what temperature to do. But that turned out pretty good. But what's your go-to?
My go-to probably, I think in my house, the most popular things I make are ribs.
Okay.
And I think that's probably number two. Number one's probably pulled pork or pork butt.
Okay.
But in New Mexico, we do things a little differently. So I'll make a pork butt, and then we'll do regular barbecue sandwiches and stuff like that. But then with the leftovers, we'll make a big batch of red chili, and and marinate that leftover pork overnight. And then I'll put it back in the smoker in a pan for another couple hours. And it turns into what we call carne lavada.
Sounds awesome.
It is awesome. Yeah. And then we just make burritos or stuff like that. So that's probably the most popular thing at my house.
What's the most far out thing you've done?
Oh, geez. Far out. Far out. That as in exotic?
That's an old term.
Yeah, as in exotic.
That does age me a little bit, but yeah.
I honestly don't get too crazy. My wife and daughter are pretty picky about large cuts of meat. I just enjoy asserting my dominance over large cuts of meat. Yeah. But
so wood pellet, charcoal.
Okay, that's the other thing. So my wife gives me a hard time because my backyard is kind of full of stuff, and so I've got I do a wood pellet. Smoker. I have a Weber, and probably use the Weber more than anything else. Okay. And then I have a Blackstone.
Yeah, I love the Blackstone.
Yeah, and then I have a what we call in New Mexico, we call it a disco. It's basically just a burner with a big wok.
Oh, okay.
Some people call them cowboy woks or discs or stuff like that. And so I've got a lot of those things in the backyard. But the Weber is actually my favorite.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So real quick before we wrap up, let's circle back. You'd mentioned that municipalities have a fiduciary responsibility to ensure, proper lighting.
Right.
Touch on that a little bit more. Why is that important?
Well, I mean, simply for, protecting their own skin from litigation in, if there's an accident, crimes committed in that area.
Sure. Okay.
Lawyers want to go after the biggest fish, right? And so particularly we've heard many, many stories where there was an accident or something like that. And, lawyers go out there and they look at the lights and go, well, this light wasn't on. That's why there was an accident, right? So it's one of those, we all, as we're driving the streets or, walking through buildings, we all take lighting for granted, right? Because we just don't think about it because it's always supposed to be there. And when it's not there, that's when we start to notice. And the main issue is them protecting themselves, like I said, from litigation. Okay. But
now you may go from different areas of town, maybe an older part of town where, you may notice the lighting's really not that great.
Yeah.
And maybe they've put more into a newer subdivision or something like that. Is that just because, you know, codes have changed over the years, or, you know, what's the difference?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of local municipality codes that can affect how much light, particularly in neighborhoods and residential neighborhoods. So I'll give you a quick example. So in Albuquerque, for instance, in the residential neighborhoods, they only allow lighting in the intersections of those neighborhood streets unless those intersections are more than 500 feet apart. If those intersections are 500 feet apart, they can put a light halfway between them. So on a 500-foot long block, there might be only 3 lights there, and that's a city ordinance.
And that's so the residents in that area just don't have light blinding them all night.
That's the reasoning behind it.
Okay,
yeah.
That makes sense.
You know, and you know, in New Mexico particularly, we have dark. You know, we do dark sky compliance. So any luminaire above 15 feet has to be 0 uplight. So it's full cutoff. So at the 180-degree level, there's no uplight, right? And that's not always the case. And Texas doesn't have that. Oklahoma, as far as I know, I don't think Missouri has that as well.
Okay.
So there's those sorts of ordinances too that can affect the utility or municipality's ability to provide adequate lighting. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword, as it were.
Yeah. Okay.
They know they want to protect themselves, but they can't always.
Interesting. Okay. Well, that's awesome. Thanks again. You know, I appreciate you being here, taking time to come in and sit down and visit with us. I really enjoy getting to meet new people and getting to learn about what they do, and it's been great. So
thanks. I appreciate it.
Yep.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I really enjoyed our conversation with Shawn. Such a great opportunity to get to know him a little bit better. If you're in need of expert advice for a project, or needing high quality representation from a great sales force, reach out to us here at CBM. You can find us anywhere online at cbmrep.com. Thanks again, and join us next time on Power the Network.